good afternoon, good evening, and all in here, welcome to the Skinny to Beast project, episode 1. I'm super excited, and I'm sitting right next to a great person today for the first episode of the project, and she's somebody who's been through what I believe to be one of the most amazing transformations I've seen in my years in the fitness industry, and she's accomplished great things in a very short amount of time, and I'm really pumped to have Nicola King with us for the first episode. She went through a big transformation, not only physically, I believe like emotionally as well.
Yeah.
And she competed today, I think today you competed or yesterday?
Yesterday,
She competed yesterday at Body Power, and she was in Birmingham. I thought to myself, well, we have this chance to grab her and then pick her brain about what she's got to share, what about her amazing transformation. And I gathered from the media and from everything I've learned that obviously you went through a big stage of anorexia where you reached the lowest point at 4 stones and eventually got to where you are now, which is not 4 stones, looking better, feeling better, and keep improving in life. And what we're going to do throughout this episode is pretty much sharing your story and how obviously this can help anybody out there who wants to make a change, anybody who wants to gain weight, but anybody who wants to make a change, and then how you attack that, what's your mindset, what value you will take away, you can take from that.
Yeah.
So, ladies and gentlemen, that's Nicola King.
So I'm Nicola King. I live in Andover in Hampshire, and I'm in Birmingham today because I've been at Body Power competing yesterday. I'm here today because Ollie asked me to come and share my story from being anorexic to now competing in bodybuilding. So here I am.
Great. Find people obviously who are going through the opposite. I mean, usually it's weight loss.
Yeah.
Like somebody lose weight and then you came from obviously being anorexic to where you are now. Can you give us a bit of a backstory, like how did you get to the first stage of anorexia and stuff?
It was a long time ago, to be honest. I was probably 14, 15 when I started to struggle, but it never came out on food. I changed quite dramatically mentally. My mum and dad knew that something was sort of going on. I just started to feel like things were going out of control in life. So then my control then went to the food. I restricted from the age of 16, and then my control got out of control, basically. And then it just went from one thing to another.
And how long have you been in that situation? How many years, months?
No, it was a few years of my life. So I first went into hospital in 2010. And I think all in all, I spent over 1.5 years in hospital without coming home. I came home, I think, for a few weeks at a time. So big chunk of my life gone. It was like my 18th and 19th birthday was in inpatient units. So
I mean, for me, obviously, I probably never experienced anorexia before, but I was a kid who was born skinny.
yeah.
And like I had to fight to add some meat on my bone and stuff like that. And I'm trying to understand, like, how did it start? Like, what triggered it? Like, was it, I don't know, the desire to like look like something, or like was it more mental, or what was it?
I think initially it was control. I felt I needed to control something in my life.
Okay.
And I wanted to lose a bit of weight, but I never had the intention of getting how I did. I just wanted to be smaller, and then that's when the illness kicked in, and it was obviously the smallest I was. It was just never enough. It always wants you to go, just keep going. And what I try and stress so much to people suffering is it won't ever be happy with the weight you get to. So even when I was at my lowest, at 4 stone, it would still drive you to go further. And the only place there is after that is death, really. I know it's extreme, but it's never going to tell you that you're at the point it wants you to be at.
Wow, that's really deep. And when you got to that 4 stones, and then like things got critical, and obviously you got to the hospital, I'm sure the doctor told you like, okay, what happened there?
I had mixtures of inpatient treatment. So my first admission was in the Priory in Southampton, and then I got shipped around a lot because they weren't allowed to tube feed there, and I refused to eat anything. So then I went to a unit that was able to do that, and then they couldn't help anymore. So then they shipped me to London, where I actually was abused in that hospital. So then they took me out of there, and then they kind of gave up and sent me home. And I actually, as much as I hated being in hospital, I actually pleaded to not go home because I knew what was going to happen. Like, I was in no mental state to eat, and I knew. But they sent me home, and within weeks my mum had to call the ambulance, and then I was in intensive care for a few weeks just before Christmas. I nearly died, I think, just before Christmas. But that whole time, even then, I still pulled out tubes. I tried to escape from the hospital. Like, I was adamant to be well, yeah.
Wow. And that was December?
2011 was at that point, yeah.
Okay. Wow. And from there on, obviously, what happened after that?
So when I came out of intensive care, I went back to the Priory because it was the only place I kind of responded. But I went back on the terms that I wouldn't engage in any therapy. Like, everybody deals with it so differently, so what worked for me wouldn't work for someone else, but I had to be separated from any other person with an illness because they usually put you in a group, and for me that was the worst thing they could have done. So I said I would only go back there if I was separate, if I didn't have to do therapy, and if I was just on my own every day to deal with like my own thoughts. I engaged for a little bit and then backed off again, and then when they released my, because I was under section, but when they released my section I discharged myself, and then went home and went downhill again. So it was really a up and down, yeah.
And what was the family and friends' reaction when you were going through all that?
My friends, I didn't really see many of them because I kind of wasn't in the state to. I think my mum and dad and sister, but it tore them apart. My mum said that during my illness, although I was still alive, she said that she kind of lost me. Because when she used to come and see me, like, I wasn't me. And I knew it. It's almost like, I try to explain it to people, it's like living with an abusive partner that you can't get away from, because the abusive partner is in your head. So every morning I used to wake up not wanting to wake up because I was terrified to have to spend the day with my head. That's how I kind of try and explain it.
Wow, that's really deep. And now you're sitting next to me and you're telling me this story, and I'm trying to picture it and see how deep in the darkness that was.
Yeah.
And let me say, great achievement while you're next to me now. Obviously looking great,
Thank you.
healthy, you know, that's great.